Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to our series about the ANC's victories and successes. These videos are in two parts, one about the victories and one about the successes. I don't mean victories and successes. I mean like victories and failures. Victories and failures, like because you succeed in something and then you fail in something else. So we will be looking at both. This part is about the infrastructure development, the successful parts or the successful intent. Infrastructure has been key focus of the African National Congress since the advent of democracy in South Africa. Recognizing the crucial role that infrastructure plays in economic growth and social development, the ANC-led government prioritized large-scale infrastructure projects aimed at bridging the gap between urban and rural communities, improving access to essential services and supporting economic opportunities. These efforts have transformed South Africa's physical landscape, providing millions with better access to transportation, utilities, and digital connectivity. One of the ANC's earliest and most impactful initiatives in infrastructure development was the Reconstruction and Development Program, RDP, which laid the foundation for addressing social inequalities in housing, electricity, water, and sanitation. The RDP focused on providing essential services to communities that has been neglected under apartheid, particularly in rural and previously disadvantaged areas. By investing in these basic needs, the ANC helped improve the quality of life for millions, enhancing their access to housing, clean water, and reliable electricity. Yes, essentially, when you look at the title of this video, infrastructure, like the thing that pops to mind immediately would be bridges and dams and like satellites, like whatever, like ports. But the fact of the matter is, like, these things were built under the apartheid government. We had we still have very good ports. We have good airports. The road structure is way better than the rest of Africa, except maybe Morocco. Like, I don't know too much about Morocco, but like it's possible Morocco may be better than us, or and the Seychelles, if we consider the Seychelles as part of Africa. Like, the aim of this RDP, Reconstruction and Development Program, reconstruction. So that's basically like fixing what was broken at the time. Because remember, these so-called Bantustans, or these like quasi-republics within South Africa, like there was some investment initially and then none, and then they kind of like collapsed. So they and the rural areas had to be fixed. And then development is just like, development in the slums or the townships, and development like in the rural areas, basically building something where there was nothing. Okay. Now, if you're going to do this, remember the budget is still limited. So like, even although the apartheid sanctions has been lifted and there's now more money coming in, this money is like redistributed in a different way. Because like, where let's say 10 or 20% of the population used to get most of the wealth, now the resources have to be spread between everyone. Like, and although like your poorest of the poor people are substantially better off than they used to be, like, going from something like how people lived in the Middle Ages to something where like now at least you have like water, electricity, and telecommunications, that's a substantial improvement. Like, no, I know now some of you in the slums, and like, don't get me wrong, I'm sorry that you still have to live in a slum and so on and so forth. you're watching this video and maybe you will comment, but still, like the fact that you have like telecommunications is a massive jump from where we were like 40 years ago. That is like, or 30 years ago. It's definitely there. And, you know, like building houses as well. Like, so a dam, you know, like let's say the maintenance you have to do on a dam is less. You have to do a lot of maintenance on like an airport and roads, and that's why roads, one of the reasons roads went down, like the quality of the roads went down. Lots of potholes started appearing because like a road needs constant like maintenance, and a lot of our big infrastructure, it wasn't maintained. So like a port, a seaport or a dam, you know, these things can, you know, take a hit, or, you know, like water infrastructure, massive pipes. But after a while, even they need maintenance. And then because a lot of the money was diverted to other projects, we're not talking now about any money that may have been stolen by corruption or lost with inefficiency or misapplication of funds. We're just talking about, like, for this purpose, about spreading all the money out. So obviously you cannot cover everything, unfortunately. And for that reason, a lot of Johannesburg became like degraded. But yes, like a lot of people, like the clinics you have in the countryside, the satellite police stations, it improved. It definitely improved. Electrification was another major focus of the ANC's infrastructure policies. At the end of the apartheid, only around 1/3 of South Africa's households had access to electricity, 1/3, with rural areas particularly underserved. The National Electrification Program, NEP, launched by the ANC in the mid-90s, aimed to bring electricity to all South Africans, regardless of their location or income level. Over the next 2 decades, this program connected millions of households to the national grid, raising the electrification rate to over 85% by 2016. Electrification not only improved the quality of life, but also enabled economic development, as business and industries could now operate in previously underserved areas. So we go from like 1/3, 33% to 85% electrification. That's great. Now I know like a lot of electricity is being stolen by these illegal connections, and some people say, well, we need illegal connections because we're freezing in winter and we're no longer allowed to burn wood, or the price of wood has become or coal has become too expensive. Those are valid arguments, all of them. But like the fact that we now live in a mostly electrified country, you know, is a big step forward. And I mean, you need electricity for freaking everything these days. It's like the way coal was like, you know, 150 years ago or 200 years ago. Electricity has now replaced that. Like for everything, telecommunications, life-saving medical equipment, you know, getting an airplane to land and take off, like the radio signals needed for ships to come in and leave, the pumps needed for water. By the way, we'll get to the water pumps when we get to the failure section. Everything just freaking needs electricity. So like it's extremely important to have it. And now, well, for a very long time, South Africa, like, I'm just going to call it the 9 lost years under Zuma. I know it was a bit of propaganda from President Cyril Ramaphosa, but in some other video I'll address Zuma. I'm going to make a lot of videos about him. Yeah, but not now. I'm too busy. Busy doing this one. Water access has been another important achievement under the ANC's infrastructure development efforts. The government worked to expand access to clean and safe drinking water, particularly in rural and under-resourced communities. Through projects like Working for Water Initiative, the ANC addressed both water access and environmental concerns by employing individuals to clear invasive plant species and threatened water resources. This program created jobs while conserving water resources, reflecting the ANC's commitment to sustainable development and environmental stewardship. By 2015, around 90% of South Africa's households had access to improved water resources, a significant improvement from the early 1990s. In addition, yes, they laid unfortunately, some infrastructure degraded, like major infrastructure in the cities, but other parts like the slums and rural areas got new services. That's part of the like the entire economic plan during that time. And what helped a lot is we had these water hyacinths, which is the invasive species from, I don't know where it comes from, like Asia, Europe, America. If you're a biologist, please tell us where like the hyacinths come from. They were clogging freaking everything in South Africa, killing fish, like using water, just being a general nuisance. So clogging dams, like, so they got like unemployed people and they just started removing them. And I believe the problem's kind of solved now. Then another massive issue is these imported trees from Australia, like, what do you call the things? Is it jacaranda trees? And the other one, in Afrikaans, is bloekomboom, eucalyptus trees. So because I'm not like a plant guy, but because I think Australia is so dry, that these native Australian plants, as soon as they get exposed to water, they start drinking because they don't know when they will get water again. And then some retarded person, like the British, for some reason brought in these things like for firewood, and the apartheid government never really did anything about it. And then they just like proliferated all freaking over the place, especially like on catchment areas, like on hillsides, and the government got people to chop them down and remove them. That helped quite a bit. What else can I say about water? Yes, and this is a big issue. Another thing that happened with water, it was the world's first water war. That was when South Africa invaded Lesotho to secure a dam that we financed. What's it called? The Leboa water project. And Nelson Mandela actually started that war because it seemed that the coup plotters in Lesotho, like, were going to blow the dam up. Like, people were very concerned because then the Gauteng province, the biggest, or no, it's not the biggest province, the province with the largest population and the most industry, most like dependent on that water, would have stopped existing and people would have died. So we had to secure our water source. And like another big thing is because apartheid ran like the United States did before Nixon with regards to the environment, freaking a lot of stuff was just like polluted. There was massive pollution. Like, I remember when I was at school, like we studied it at school. It was so obvious it couldn't be hidden. Like the Eastern Province, at that stage, we just called it West Transvaal. It was before the provincial lines were redrawn. That part was more polluted than East Germany. And East Germany was at the same time. And East Germany was I think the most industrialized part of the Soviet Union. Also, East Germany obviously didn't have any regulation. So there's like no scrubbers taking this disgusting, what do you call it, SO2, sulfuric oxide gas out from the coal plants and, fire, what do you call it, like coal-fired power stations. So these things just burned without any environmental consideration. And that kind of polluted the water. And it's like the mines as well. Like the mines dumped massive amount of chemicals into the water table all across the province of Gauteng and maybe other areas as well. And the government, the ANC government, had to spend a lot of money to clean it up. And it's still not clean because it's freaking acid water. But they have started doing, they started holding the companies liable for cleanup. So that's a start. Transportation infrastructure has also significantly invested under the ANC's leadership, with projects designed to improve connectivity, support economic growth, and facilitate trade. One of the most notable projects is the Gautrain, a high-speed rail system that connects Johannesburg, Pretoria, and the OR Tambo International Airport. The Gautrain has provided a reliable and efficient mode of transportation for commuters and travelers, reducing congestion on major highways and supporting economic activity in Gauteng, South Africa's economic hub. The Gautrain project symbolized the ANC's commitment to modernizing South Africa's transportation system and aligning it with global standards. Road infrastructure has been another priority, particularly given the importance of road networks for economic activity and social mobility. The ANC-led government has road networks for economic activity called under the Expanded Public Works Program, or EPWP, launched in 2004. It played a crucial role in these efforts by providing job opportunities for South Africans in infrastructure-related projects. The EPWP has contributed to poverty reducing and job creation, particularly in rural areas, while enhancing South Africa's transportation infrastructure. By employing locals in local construction and in maintenance, the ANC has promoted skills development and fostered a sense of ownership and pride within communities. I just want to say one short thing about the Gautrain. The Gautrain was kind of built for the 2010 World Cup, which was a great project. And yeah, it was kind of like a way to draw the World Cup towards South Africa. And the Gautrain is just like a great project. You can ask any South African. It's highly efficient, it's clean, it's safe, it's fast, it's secure. Okay, it's not as fast as your bullet trains in France or in China or Japan, but it's fast, or Germany. And essentially, the biggest problem though is it's only 70 kilometers going from the southeast to the center to the north. And 70 kilometers isn't a long line, but it's the only thing we only had money for that. And then with regards to the World Cup stadiums, these were high quality stadiums, very modern design, and I think, how many did we build? 5 new ones. The infrastructure, the bathroom, there were bathrooms everywhere. There were places where you can buy beer and soft drinks and snacks and food everywhere. Unfortunately it was McDonald's, because McDonald's, it's how the sponsorship works for FIFA. And McDonald's is disgusting, by the way, but we were you have much more superior South African food on offer than McDonald's, those of South Africans would know, Steers and Wimpy well, both of those are better than McDonald's. And then also Nando's, internationally you're probably familiar with Nando's. And yeah, the World Cup was great, and that's was a huge success for the ANC. However, actually, now a lot of South Africans, because of like underdevelopment, like everyone couldn't be saved, like essentially, like, you know, what I mean saved is like their lives improved in the slum to an extent that would make them happy. They have now, people in general have turned against something like the World Cup. Like that's why we won't have an Olympics within the next 100 or 200 years, because it's such a waste of money. Like it's a vanity project. So we will never have that, like, which is a good thing. I agree. You shouldn't spend money on something like that if the utility can be used, the economic utility can be used somewhere else. Like, so that's just like, you know, to set it off. The ANC also recognized the importance of digital infrastructure in a rapidly evolving global economy. Access to the internet and digital technologies is essential for economic competitiveness, education, and social inclusion. Through initiatives like the South African Connect program, the ANC has sought to expand broadband access, especially in school, clinics, and public service centers in underserviced areas. By prioritizing digital inclusion, the ANC has aimed to bridge the digital divide and equip South Africans with skills and connectivity needed to thrive in a knowledge-based economy. So I just want to add, like, that was done, a lot of it was done by Telkom, which is like the state-owned operator for like telecommunications. And essentially, the government did do some things like, you know, fiber optics and stuff like that, but most of it was driven by the private sector. And unfortunately, the private sector is still not super regulated. Like, so data and telecoms in South Africa is super expensive. Like, it's really, at one time, okay, I needed it, but at one time, like 10% of my like income went to telecommunications. I had freaking like no choice. It was insane. The Rural Infrastructure Development Program has been particularly important for the ANC. As rural areas have been historically neglected and deprived of basic services. Programs like the Comprehensive Rural Development Program, or CRDP, have aimed to improve infrastructure in rural areas, including roads, healthcare facilities, schools, and agricultural support services. The CRDP has sought to create self-sustaining rural economies by improving access to markets, supporting small-scale farmers, and providing essential services that enhance the quality of life in rural communities. Through rural development initiatives, the ANC has worked to address the urban-rural divide, ensuring that people in rural areas have equal opportunities and access to services. So, once again, I think I said it in a previous video, this is something that they could have really done more about. Like, a lot of these roads are just dirt roads. And as I mentioned in the farm murders video, like, this is like, you know, a problem. Okay, I know, like, you can't just spend a lot of money on and build like tar roads everywhere. Also, a tar road, remember, a tar road is held in place by cars driving over it. That's constantly pressing the tar down. So it's it will be a huge mistake to build a tar road in a place where there's very few cars. But like some places, like, you know, a village of, you know, 50 people, for example, like, they deserve a road, because what if someone gets sick suddenly, you know? And that village also needs, like, you know, they need supplies, they need to do their small amount of exports or whatever they have. So the ANC did that, you know, like, you started seeing this, and they did help, like, with like the some schools and clinics and these things, but maybe not quite enough. What was also done was like the so-called industrial zones, like special economic zones, and they were meant for like manufacturing to bring in foreign investment. So this was also came from a place of love, like it was created to, it was like, you know, Shenzhen in China, you know, that it's a place like, suppose China, how many of these things does China have? Like a huge amount. Like it was supposed to be like that. What's that one called in the Eastern Cape? Kucha. Yes, like those things, like you're supposed to basically have like a huge amount of autonomy in an area like that, and we just didn't have it. Like let's say your labor law, which is very rigid in South Africa. South Africa is like the opposite of like the right to work. Okay, I'm a strong believer in, I know it's this weird neoliberal theory or whatever people want to make it out to be, but I am a strong liberal, I'm a strong supporter of the right to work, in the sense that people lose absolute dignity when they can't work, you know, even for a very small salary. They lose like purpose and meaning in life. After a while they go insane because they feel they're useless. And it's not because they're useless. It's just simply because a couple of unions have a stranglehold or a monopoly on the jobs available. And these people are, instead of like, let's say, halving the salary and doubling the jobs, you know, there's a stranglehold on the high-paying jobs. So what I would like to see, I've seen it's great to make a investment zone, but you have to then bring deregulation into this area. And I said before, I'm not fully total deregulation. People should still be safe. You know, people shouldn't you shouldn't lose an arm in a factory because the factory is unsafe. And you shouldn't there shouldn't be like environmental degradation. But, for example, you can't just ask any salary you want. So it should be easy. It should be easy for investors to come into these areas, like it was in China, or still is in China to an extent. The economy is changing, but the world is changing. But once again, my point is it came from a place of love. I've said it so many times. This is why I said, there's a lot of these successes of the ANC's kind of, the success videos, some of it will be romanticized to a bit, or I don't want to say embellished, because these things are still based on facts, but it's just okay. So we have an industrial zone which very few people invested in, and so the victories parts will have this national romance attached to it, and the failures will have this national manufacture. Some of it will be factual, the failures, but some of it will also be this manufactured national horror, which is a horror that was put there by the media, not because it's actually true. It's a lot of the stuff's seen outside of context. So you see, this is why it's so important to tell a story about the ANC and even the previous government, the apartheid government as well. It's in a balanced way, and bring talk about everything, not just the things you want to talk about. And I saw this video by, what was it? I don't know what's the guy on Wisecrack called. It's the philosophy channel on YouTube. I watched a video from him about the problem. It's called The Problem of Jubilee. You can watch it. It's a very cool video. And he mentions that you can't really have argued that the position between two opposites, the middle position between opposites are the correct one. Obviously, you can't do that. I see that. And but we can demonstrate this in these videos by simply saying that the ANC was doing the right thing for 30 years until they stopped, and then they got voted out. So you see this point did move, left and right. So it's, it's like, it's very easy to demonize the ANC, and it's very easy to just get into a pro-ANC echo chamber, but some of these people in the EFF and the EFF political party and the MK party, they will hate me for saying this, but the fact of the matter, they are in some form of an ANC echo chamber as well, because why else would they want to still unite with the ANC? What I mean with that is they want to be in what we have in 2024 now, the government of national unity. Not the ANC, they want it. So, they will also defend the ANC. If you break it down totally, they will go out and defend it. So you see, there's a lot of different facts, happenings, nuance, points of view. In the end, it's only the facts that matter. The points of view, I know optics, make and break governments and situations and reality, but the facts will always remain the same. You can't change that. The ANC's approach to infrastructure has been guided by the principles of inclusivity, accessibility, and sustainability. Recognizing the environmental impact of infrastructure projects, the ANC has promoted eco-friendly projects in construction, energy, and water management. Renewable energy projects such as wind and solar power plants have been encouraged to diversify South Africa's energy mix and reduce dependence on coal. The ANC's support for green infrastructure reflects its commitment to addressing climate change and promoting sustainable development that considers future generations. Now, this is a mixed bag, or a bag full and a mixed bag, in the sense that, look, the days of oil is numbered. The days of coal are numbered. The question is just when. When do we cut it off? You can try to prove me wrong on anthropogenic climate change, but I will win the argument. And I'm not saying it because I'm arrogant. I'm saying it because it's very easy for me to go onto Google Scholar and AI and get papers, to prove it. Now, the opposite of this is that you have economy or infrastructure that's dependent on oil and coal. You can't just snap your fingers and boom, there's all of these solar panels and windmills paid off, nuclear stations paid off, working, then okay, we can close the coal plants. That's not how it works. Those things, we simply don't have money for nuclear in South Africa. And well, this is the beauty actually of the beauty of the solar and the wind. It's modular. Because it's modular, it's easy to finance. But it takes time to build up capacity to where you can power a city. And then to power factories is much more difficult, because factories just use this insane amount of power. If you're going to smelt something, a smelter, a furnace, woo, if you're a smelter engineer, if you're an engineer in South Africa, please tell us more about how electricity works, what's our needs, you know, can it be done by solar and solar and wind at all, or do we need nuclear, or like should we just stick to coal and fuel and like oil, and why? So I know I watched a video by Dr. Franz Cronje. That's probably the most, I wish I was Dr. Franz Cronje. It's like my hero. It's kind of my hero, but like, it's just because the guy, his predictions are so accurate. It always comes true. Like, he basically made the point that, look, South Africa isn't ready to have a European style energy infrastructure where we like follow the European model of, you know, sustainability and renewability, because like we're just too poor. For us, something like the Chinese model, I want to say the Russian model, but you can't really, because Russia has so much nuclear, but China has a lot of nuclear as well. China has the second most nuclear plants in the world, I believe. But like, and they're building all the time. The Chinese build a lot, but like the Chinese have a lot of coal as well, like, and India too. So, you know, like we need to do it, like, or else we will have these electricity cuts, and that will impede economic development. And then we won't, if economic development is impeded, we won't have money for more solar panels and like windmills in any case. So look, it's absolutely necessary to move to sustainable energy and nuclear. And then later, you know, 100, 200 years from now, fusion energy. It's absolutely essential. But up until that point, we need to be careful not to kneecap us. Although we're in an interesting time now. At the time of the making of this video, it's just this insane hurricane season and typhoon season. Massive like fires in Europe, like Spain, massive droughts, massive fires in Canada, all over Canada, like what, thousands of fires at the time. Like, if you're Canadian, please tell us more about the fires there. Fires in the Amazon, fires in the Pantanal region of like Argentina, places that never saw fires. Then you have snow in South Africa, you have snow in Saudi Arabia. Look, it's like the problem, you know, these floods in Slovakia, floods in Spain, like super heavy rain in China, destroying crops. So the thing is, like, look, at one stage, the economic loss from global warming will trump like any gain from oil, gas, and, you know, coal. That's a fact. Sooner or later, the losses, the economic losses, which will be on every front, by the way. It's not just some dike in the Netherlands that breaks, you know, even although it's 1,000-year dike, you know, the weather is changing so quickly that 1,000-year dike is now maybe a 300-year dike, you know, probability-wise of the thing being flooded. So you know, if you have like a third of the Netherlands destroyed, apart from the massive, awful loss of human life, you know, a massive, like one of the biggest economies in the world, you just destroyed part of it. But even that will be small fry in comparison to, let's say, half of the US or half of Brazil or half of Africa suffering a droughts or floods that will basically destroy half of like the food supply. And the world won't be able to handle that inflation. So there will be wars, and wars cost money, you know. So at one stage you have to address this apocalypse, and that's actually, you know, like it's beyond, you know, whether you believe in anthropological climate change or not. What's very real is what's happening on the ground. You can go there. If you believe like the fires in Spain is fake news, why don't you fly there and find out for yourself? Like and these things have like have an economic impact. So the money, there will be money spent fixing these things. Like, you know, and in some cases it will be impossible. But like that will leave you, once the costs become so high, people will start looking at any solution to fix the economic problem. And inevitably, that will lead to, I've heard about projects like, what do you call it, spraying, what's it, phosphorus, or no, not phosphorus, like aluminum dust into the atmosphere, dusting the clouds with that to reflect the sunny waves. I've heard about like, you know, new algae like being created to absorb CO2. I've heard about like, there's many ingenious schemes. Like I've heard about this crazy thing, this laser that will ionize the atmosphere if you shoot it, creating more like, what do you call it, O3, ozone, like, and that will apparently bring down the climate. But look, those things sound great, but maybe we should listen to 99% of the scientific community and just try to reduce like CO2. Although it can't be done straight away in developing nations. However, these, like a country like South Africa leaves such a small imprint, you know, using carbon. A country like Rwanda uses even less, much less, a fraction of South Africa. Like in Afrikaans we say sondebok, which means gazelle of sin or goat of sin. That means the guilty party. The guilty parties are the United States, UK, France, Germany, China, maybe a bit of Russia. You know, these are India. These are the guys polluting the earth, and everyone else, like 10 countries pollute the earth and everyone else has to suffer. And the rest, the people who are suffering actually, are the guys who uses the smallest amount of energy. You know, so although this like ANC thing about solar and wind failed in the sense that we ran out of electricity and we had to switch the power plants back on and the coal plants and burn like oil and natural gas. It comes from a place of love, and also it comes from a place of intelligence. Like, I'll fight you about it. No, I'm joking. I would lose a fight, so please don't fight me about it. In conclusion, the ANC's infrastructure development policies have transformed South Africa's landscape and improved access to essential services for millions of people, from housing and electrification to transportation and digital connectivity. The ANC has worked to create a more equitable and inclusive society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. While challenges remain, the ANC's investments in infrastructure have laid the groundwork for economic growth, social progress, and environmental sustainability. Through its infrastructure development efforts, the ANC has demonstrated its commitment to building a South Africa that's united, resilient, and forward-looking. So yeah, there I end my my infrastructure video with a very positive note. The fact is, it is a much different country to the one I grew up in. And you get a lot of apartheid apologists who will tell me, or will tell you, no, that's simply not true, blah, blah, blah. And you will get ANC politicians or ANC hardcore supporters who will tell you, oh yeah, but like, you know, the ANC changed our lives. You know, both are wrong and both have a bit of like, correctness, but the fact of the matter is the ANC did like change people's lives for the better. But as I said, let's look at this point, like 30 years of good stuff or relatively good stuff. Okay, Zuma was horrible in that 30 years, but we're going to talk about him. I almost want to divorce him from the ANC. That's how bad he is. And then basically the 30th year where the ANC gets voted out of power. So, and they may fall even further simply because people's opinion changes. Like after a while, the expectations rise. Now it's no longer enough to have, 100 bytes of data. You need like megabytes of data. Now you need 5 gig or 10 gig. It's no longer sufficient to have enough electricity for a single light bulb. Now you need to power a heater and what have you. So, like the expectations and the needs have grown to such an extent, and the population has grown a lot with immigration, that, the goalposts have shifted. And this is why the ANC is seen as a failure. Don't forget, never forget, that the apartheid government was bankrupt when the ANC took over because of sanctions. Because of sanctions, they were bankrupt. And the ANC had to fix this. We weren't even given debt relief because of the apartheid government. No one felt sorry for us about apartheid. They were just like, you will pay your debt. And Nelson Mandela paid the debt. Thabo Mbeki paid the debt. All of us, everything we owned. That's why the credit rating under President Thabo Mbeki, that's our best president, by the way, is Thabo Mbeki. Nelson Mandela was good, but the guy who kind of built the economy was Thabo Mbeki. And our credit rating was super high, very good. It was very cheap for us to borrow money. That's why we developed so quickly. And I know if you're a left-wing guy, you're going to tell me, oh yeah, but only some benefited. If the bonds are high, we lose money. Less money, less development, less money for the poor. That's a fact. And, so these victories, they have to be appreciated and also seen in the nuance of the times, the time when it started and the time where it ended. So it's not this binary point in time. We start in 1994 and we end in the election of May. We start in April 1994, okay? And then, further than that, if we talk about the liberation struggle, which is like a separate victory, which starts in 1912. But we start, for most of my victories, I start at the point of April 1994, and I end in May 2024. I measure this period. Because this is where the ANC held power. And as I said, my theory or my opinion is that Zuma is almost like alien to the ANC. And we will talk about that some other time, just not this video. This one is dedicated to the romanticized romanticized with facts, that part of the ANC. Until next time, thank you very much for listening to my rantings. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.